Welcome back to another web development video where I'll show you how to make modern websites using HTML5, CSS3, and a little bit of JavaScript. In this video we're going to jump back into Webflow, which is a visual web development tool that's web-based. If you don't know about it, go to webflow.io and you can learn all about Webflow. But essentially you're visually doing what you would normally just type out in the code, in the HTML or the CSS. You can visually manipulate those properties and add pretty amazing JavaScript effects, just drag and drop, dropping those effects onto different elements. So one of the things I figure a lot of people might want to do is to move over from WordPress to maybe try out Webflow. So if you're looking, or maybe you're looking for a new blogging solution that doesn't, it's not the whole setup of WordPress with the backend and the database and all that kind of stuff. Well, Webflow has something called CMS. It's called Webflow CMS, and it's a part of all of this, the Webflow software program. And so what it allows you to do is not only do things like blog posts, but if you had a team of people, you could create a database for that team. Or if you had a portfolio, you could make each project part of a portfolio collection. So thinking of it, if you're coming from WordPress, thinking of it like you would think of custom post types, that type of idea. Except there's no database work, which is really nice. So the database is sort of graphic interface fields that you would normally, interact with on a website. So we'll get into this. This is the example that I just want to think about, like how can we get into a basic, simple blog, right? So we have each post with a title and the date it's posted, a little bit of a summary, and then when you click to read more, it goes to your blog posts, and it goes to whatever the name of the post is. You can read the post, you can go back to the blog, and so it's sort of your entryway into the blog. And then you could also create a basic sort of about page, but essentially this is the most basic of blogs, right? And so let's dig into this a little bit. First thing we need to do, let's create this header section. And so the page we're on is the home page. You can see right here, this is the page on the home page. Let's go ahead and create another page. It's going to be called About. And it's going to have a slug of about, so you can see whatever your website URL is /about. That's what it'll be. You can fill in some of these things if you want to. This is for search engine optimization. So we're on the About page now. We want to go back to Home, and let's just get started building out our what I would call a masthead. But essentially it's just your header that has the site name and then the site navigation. So inside this section we're going to have a couple different elements. One is a heading and the other one is going to be I'm going to use this list item, because normally when I would write HTML and CSS, I would use an unordered list in order to create a navigation menu, and then we're going to use some flexbox in order to make that happen. So let's put this in here. We can see that it's going into our section, and we have an unordered list, and we have a few different list items here. We only need 2 of those, so I'm just going to delete one of them. And inside this list item, I want to put a link. And this link is going to go to the home page. If I double click, I can get in there and just say I think on our sample it says blog. And then I'm going to put a link inside this list item as well. And that link is going to let's see if it lets me get in there. It's not, so let's just copy and paste down. Okay, that's weird. So let's go ahead and add a list item. It's very strange. Alright, somewhere got a list. We're going to add a list item. Okay, and then inside that list item, I'm going to add a link. Alright, boy, that was strange. Okay, so we'll just call this one about. Remember, we're following sort of our flow up here. We'll say my blog. Okay, so this is our header section here, and if we click on that, we can see that it's our entire header section here. What I want to do in this header is I want to text align to the center all of the elements. So I'm going to go all the way to the header level, to the very top section level, and just center everything in this section, because that's really what I want. And then we need to style our list, and so our list is going to be, we're just going to call it nav menu. It's important to put these classes in here as much as possible because it's going to make dealing with the site later on a lot easier. So the nav menu is going to be, we don't need any padding, so I'm just going to make that 0 pixels, and we need this to be display flex, and then we want to justify it to the center, which pulls everything to the center, and then we also want to get rid of the bullets if we can. So here's the list style, so we can get rid of those bullets. And then for each of these list items, let's see if we can get to that. So each list item in the nav menu, we want to put a little bit of spacing on the sides. If you hold Alt, you can do the sides that are opposite each other. So you see how it's got two, the top and the bottom. We can do them both at the same time if we hold down Alt. So that gives us a nice thing. Let's take off these. So for all links, I want to just go ahead and take off the underline, the text decoration underneath. You wouldn't normally want to do that for all your links, but I know that in this one, I don't want to have to bother with doing that for every single link. Let's style this a little bit. Actually, let's go up to the body and just set some styles for the entire thing. Let's use Montserrat, and that will style all of the text in the that's in the body of the web page. So let's go to the heading here. I don't mind the color, but I do want it to make it all caps. So let's make that all caps. And then I'm going to come here to the nav menu, also going to make those all caps. And so we have those. They have actually a little bit more space between the list items, so we can add just a little bit more. Maybe one rem is 16 pixels, so let's just do that. And then there's a little bit of space in between them, but let's go ahead and put our space on the H1. That way we can clear more space up here and down here at the same time. So right now it's 20 on the top and 10 on the bottom. You can see those blue areas there. what they are. So let's just do, again, holding down Control, and let's just make that 48. And then, which is 3 rem. It's 3 rem at 16 pixels. And then I really want to bring the bottom back up to, let's say 2 rem. So let's do that. So this space here is a little bit less than this space here, which you can see. And let's take our size up to 48. So it's a little bit bigger, you can see, and it's bold. Maybe even we'll make that semi-bold, a little bit different. And then bring the letter spacing together just a little. Just sort of tighten that up a little bit. That's here with letter spacing, and it says that's the space between the characters. You don't need a lot. You know, -2 pixels, you can see here, is plenty. And then let's make these links. Again, we're going to select the all links, and we're going to make these this color here. Actually, let's set that color. So we'll add that here. And that's sort of our base gray that we're going to play with. And then when we're looking at the links, let's do the hover state. So whenever you hover over it, it should have maybe a little opacity or something like that. So we can come down and make the opacity something else, like 80%. And you can't see it there, but I'll show you in a minute. And I also like to add a little transition. If it'll let me. Okay, so I want to do it on the opacity, 200 milliseconds, and ease in, ease out. That's fine with me. So when we look at our, it's hard to see it, but you can see it change just a little bit. So maybe we need that to be a little bit more. So let's go in to the opacity for the links. And we'll make that opacity 70%. Oh, sorry, that was on the hover state, right? So we'll just Control Z that. We didn't want to do that. We want to do it on the all links hover state, right? That was where we did it. So we'll make it 70%, and maybe it'll be just a little bit easier to see. Okay, a little bit easier to see that. Alright, so that is our header, and you can see here that there's quite a bit of space above and below, a little bit more than we have. So we can put that on the section if we want to, and we could just call that the padding and say, you know, another 32 pixels, something like that. These things here, maybe that's more like 40. Okay. So pretty close to what we have there. So let's start working on this section here. So we have this middle section, and it has all of our blog posts, and it has a little summary, and it has some metadata here, and then there's a link that you can see down here to the blog post itself. So let's get into the whole reason for this video, which is to show you how to do collections. So we're going to start by making our first collection, and what we want are blog posts. Okay, so there's some collection templates that you can use depending on what you're doing, and you can see the possibilities here depending on the project or the page or whatever you're doing. So we're just going to choose blog posts. The collection name is fine. We're going to call this articles. So you can see here that it's going to be website.com/articles/ whatever the actual post title is. So we have a name, And let's change this because we really want this to be the title. So we're just going to put post title here. And you can see over here that everything's updating in real time. So this is the editor preview. And this is what the collaborators are going to see when they go to make a new post. So they're going to have title. So you could even say post title. And then the post title goes here. And then the slug, which is just going to be, oh, I didn't save it. The slug is going to be, this is this part here. So it's going to show whatever the post title is, I think is what's going to happen. The post body is going to be a rich text area. So you can put all kinds of stuff in there. You can do some basic formatting and adding images, adding videos, lists, etc. It's not just plain text. The post summary is going to be multi-line, and it is plain text, you can see. So the idea is not that we're going to be able to format the post summary. It's just going to be sort of a glob of text that's going to go on this intro page here. It's going to be this part. Okay. The main image is going to be this, and we'll keep that. And then we don't need a thumbnail image, I believe. Not planning to use that. You could do a featured section. Don't really want to have that either. I don't need a color. You could use colors to sort of color coordinate different categories, that type of thing. And I think that's all that we really need. If we think of something else, we'll come back into it. So we don't have any blog posts, and we can create some dummy content. So it'll create some dummy posts for us. Let's just do 10. And you can see now we have all of our 10 posts, and when we click on it, you see all of our fields that we just added. Post summary, the main image, etc. And then it fills in some of those things. So based on this, then it'll change this slug as well, I believe. Oh, no, you would have to change it yourself. Okay, well, that's good to know. So let's save that, and we have all of our 10 blog posts here. If we wanted to create a new blog post, you can see that it gives us all those fields, and we just have to fill them all in ourselves, including, you know, you can click to browse, or you can drag images right onto this area here. So that's how we would go in and create new blog posts. Some of these things, this is the original settings. So if you wanted to change, let's say you wanted to do the main image first before the post body, you can set your fields like this. And when you save it and you go in, then dealing with the main image has been pushed up the page a little bit. The post summary is at the bottom. Okay, so if you want to rearrange the way that the posts are, the way the form fields are when you go to make a post, that's what that's about. Okay, so we have our blog posts. They're not published yet, but what happened is when we created a collection, it creates a CMS collection page. Now you can think of this page like it's sort of like a page template in WordPress. So on a home page, you might have all these the posts sort of laid out all together, but what you really want to do when you click on here is you want to go to an individual post page. So in WordPress, it's single.php, right? That's this page where you actually are going to read the post. So in Webflow, the blog post template is the template that we use for the individual posts themselves. Okay, and we can use, this is just being taken from our collection post body. So it's being pulled in here. It's pulling in this title, it's pulling in this date, it's pulling in this image, all from our collection because you remember we had all those elements here, right? We have our post title. The slug is going to be put into the URL, but we have our image, we have our post body, and we have our post summary, and these are all pieces that we can use to put together this template. So that's essentially what we're doing when we go into the blog post template. So these are static pages, home and about. These are just going to be static pages with no dynamic content right now. But this blog post page, or template, is the template that we're going to use for every single blog post. And you see all of our blog posts here. You can sort of navigate to each of them. There's nothing on them yet, but there will be. One thing I want to do before we move on is I want to grab this entire section, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to make this a symbol. Now what a symbol does is a reusable modular piece of code that you can use in multiple places on your website. So I'm just going to call this, I prefer the term masthead. So I'm going to create the symbol, and then I'm going to go to another page, my blog post template, and then I'm going to add a symbol, and I'm going to take my masthead symbol and just simply drag it into the body, and I get the same content that I had before. So it's on my home page, but it's also on the top of each of the blog posts. So when I go to each individual blog post, they're changing, but I'm getting the same header at the top. So that's pretty cool. I wanted to do that before I moved on. Okay, homepage. So now we need to set up our collection list, is what it's called. It's like a list of all of our collection data. So we want to come in and get a new section. We'll just drag it right underneath the one that we had before. And what we need to do is go down to the CMS part, and you see here that it's a collection list, and that allows you to display content from one of your CMS collections. So you connect it to the database essentially, and then you can add different elements to this. So we drag our collection list in here like this, and the source of our collection list is going to be blog posts. So as soon as we click that, we can see that our blog posts populate. So we're getting a little bit of metadata to tell us, okay, one blog post is going to be here, one's going to be here, one's going to be here. If you want them side by side or in a grid, you can do that like this. You can do them full width, that's the default. You can do them side by side, two across. Or I don't know why you would want to do empty, but you could certainly do that. And if you wanted to see additional settings, you can click here and it shows up over here. So it's got your settings same as they were before, except it's just in a different, there's some extra ones here, like you can limit how many items are there. So you can only show the first, let's say the first 3, like that. And then you could do pagination. So you can sort of scroll through those, and you can do items per page. If you don't limit them, and you do, let's say, 4 items, then it gives you a pagination here for next, and then you can sort of just scroll through, and you can see how those things are going to paginate, give you page buttons down here. So you can see there's previous index. So compared to setting up a blog in WordPress, this is infinitely easier because you're sort of clicking your way through to create the blog. You can also change the sort order where you're sorting alphabetically, and you can sort alphabetically by these different things, or you can just do a random order, whatever you want to do. And there's some different filters as well. This would be if you only want to show so if this has been set, like if a date has been set on it, then it'll show those things. So you can filter what is shown here. That's a little more advanced than what we're going for here, but just to let you know what those things are. So I think I'm going to go and I'm going to turn the pagination off, and we're just going to have a big long list. And I also don't want them to be, I want them to be full width. And I'm going to come into here to my collection list wrapper, and I'm going to go up to my spacing, and I'm going to make sure that it's got a maximum width of 900 pixels so that it doesn't go all the way across the page. It's going to just sort of be centered here in the middle of the page. And then once we do max width, we also need to make the margin auto on each side. So if you click this little icon here, it will center everything inside of its containing element, which is this section. So now we have our content centered, and we need to come into each one of these collection items, and we need to set sort of a template for all of them to follow. And what we need is we need an image, and we need the title, and we need the date, and we need the summary, and then we need to create this read more link. So if we come in, and let's just start with our image. So let's add an image, come down here to media, and put the image in here like this. Now you can see it's added an image for every single one of my collection items. And I want to get the image from our collection. You could also choose an image, but I want to dynamically grab the image from our blog posts. And inside of our blog post, this image matches the type of field that can be used with this image tag. So we're going to say it like that. And as soon as we are getting the image from all of our blog posts, then every image that's in a blog post, in each of the blog posts, right? So you can see this image is like a little clock or watch. That's the 7 things to know. And that's this image right here. If we go to this one, you can see that's the hot air balloons, and it's pulling in, it's going into our collection and pulling in the hot air balloon one for this particular post. Okay, so hopefully that makes some sense to you. And we need to pull in more information into each of our collections. So we have a collection list. Collection item is where we want to put stuff, and so we're gonna put a heading, and we're gonna put it inside, and it's gonna be for all of our list items, right? So whatever we're doing for one, it's gonna do the same thing for all of them. And again, we can dynamically get the text from the post title. So it's gonna bring in all of our post titles, and then let's click again. This is our collection item, and we can go back in to get, let's get we'll make it a paragraph, and what we want to do with this paragraph is select it, and we want to get the text from the created on date. So we want to say it was created on this day, and then we want to bring that text in. So you can see they were all created the same day, today. But if you go into each blog post, let's say this one, oh, that's one thing I didn't add, was a created date. So it automatically, I guess, will bring in the date that you made the post. But you could also make that a field and then just add a date field that said, okay, if I want to manually make changes or backdate things or whatever, you can actually, you could go in here and you could create a new field, which would be a date and time field. And then what you'd want to call it is something like posted on. So date the post so the date the article was posted. You can include a little time picker there so that you could click on it and pick the time if you wanted to, or you can just make it where you have to input that field. I like that because it's just sort of easier to find a date. And then we could put it up here as our first thing, so the date it's posted. We have not filled that in for each one, so you could see here that it's not filled in, but you could pick the date if you wanted to, and then it would insert that. And then if you go to the next one, you picked, you know, a previous date, etc. We'll do one more. Okay, so that adds a timestamp. And then when we come back to our page, let's see if it did it automatically. Oh, we have to connect it to that piece of information. So we want to get it from the created on. We want to get it from the posted on. That's the one that we just made. It gives you the option for different sorts of timestamps and formatting for that. So do it like that. You can see this one changed to February 3rd, February 2nd. This one doesn't have any because we didn't do all those. So I guess we got to go back and get those. And we just got to sort of keep going backward in time. Then we go to another date. And keep going backward. Just a few more. I just want to make sure that I'm going in reverse chronological order. So the newest one should be first. Doesn't really matter because these posts don't really matter, but okay. Alright, so now when we go back to ours, looks like we missed one. Okay, but they all have the date now. The 14 common things, that's one that we missed. So we'll just say there. And now they all have these dates, right? That one's in the future, which is weird. Alright, so that is a couple of pieces of what we need. And you can see here we got this, we have this, and now we need to drag in our summary. So if we go, we want to put it underneath here, and what we need to do is, I like to select the element I'm going into. That's the collection item. And then you can either drag it, or you can just simply click on it, and it'll add it to the collection item. So it's in here. And for this paragraph, again, we click the text settings. We want to get the dynamic text from the post summary. Okay. So that makes it easy. It gets a different summary from each one. And then the last part that we need is this read more button. Now the text is going to be the same. So you can see that it says the same thing, but it's the link that we're concerned about the most. So let's get in here, and I'm just going to add a link. And I want this link to say read more. Okay, so it's going to say the same thing for everybody, but what I want to be dynamic is the actual link URL. Now we can click here, and this is just adding a link generally. If you click here, there's nothing to connect to because we didn't put any links into our blog post. So what we want to link to is our collection page. So when we click on this, read more, we want it to go to the page that has all of the rest of the post. And that is housed on our collection pages. So we can choose a collection page, and essentially we just want whatever the current URL for this particular blog post is. So we'll just choose current blog post, and we'll leave it at that, and we can check it by coming up here and rolling over. You can see down here, you'll see our link. It says 7 things about web design your boss wants to know. This one should be a different URL. It should go to this post. This one should go to that post, right? So it's the link that's changed, not the text. So kind of a important distinction there. But right now we're looking real good. So we got all of our information coming in. So let's give this a little bit of style. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to come in here and we're going to say, this is our post title. We'll just call it post title. And I want that to be Montserrat, yes, and maybe 32. And let's make it all caps and not bold, but normal. And then I want this post title to not be quite so wide. So I want it to have a maximum width of, let's say, 60%, maybe. It's hard to know. And then we'll center that. So yeah, that's a little short. So right now I'm holding shift and the up arrow makes it go 10% up. Down arrow is 10% down. So we'll do that. And I also want this to be centered. So we come down to our centering here, which is align center. This paragraph here I also want to be aligned center so that it's right underneath. And this paragraph is not aligned center, but we want the same, where'd it go? We want the same 80%. So let's just make this one also a maximum width of 80%. And then we also need to center that. This link here is just a standard text link. In order to do some things, we either have to wrap it in a div or a section or something, or we have to make this link display block, or I suppose we could do inline block, which is this one. So it behaves like inline, but it accepts width and height properties. If we do this one, the only clickable area is going to be the read more text if you do the inline block. If you do a block element, then from here all the way across, however wide this block is, that's all going to be clickable. So you see that's how they did it here. If I roll over here, I can still go to it. I don't have to roll right on the text. So this gives me a little bit more area in case I touch it right here. Gives me a little bit more area or room for error in order to make that click. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to set this to display block, and now you can see that it goes all the way across. Before it was like this, and you can see our box is only right here, as wide as the content, but when we set it to display block, it's as wide as the container, and so all of this text is inside of here. And that also allows us to do things like centering, because now we have a large outer element. If we centered it before, it was only this wide and it didn't matter. That's as far as it could be set. But when we do display block, we can have margin on the top and bottom. We can do some different things with it. It acts like a block level element and doesn't hurt, as far as I know, it doesn't hurt accessibility or anything like that. Okay, so this is the same for all of our collection elements here. So when we change one, we're changing them all. This one, let's bring the color back a little bit to, let's say, A. Okay, and then we'll add that color, so sort of a lighter gray. We can see that sticks out a little bit. The headline stands out a little bit more now. This headline is a little bit smaller than what we have, but I like this. So what I want to do is add a little bit of space here, and maybe a tiny bit of space there, but we have 20 right now, so let's make that 32. And on the bottom, let's just go ahead and make it a full 16, which would be 1 rem. And then this one here, this summary paragraph, we're going to add quite a bit of space. Let's do 32 on the top and bottom. And for this section right here, again, 32 on the top and bottom. Again, I'm holding Alt and just moving the mouse. Okay, you can click on these numbers like this and choose specific numbers, or to reset, Alt click. You can set them to auto. You can set them to 0. If you hold Shift and then you move up and down, then it moves all 4 directions at the same time and sets them all. Not what we're looking for right there, but handy thing to know. And now the last thing I want to do is I'm getting a lot of weirdness here because these these are not quite like I would want them to be. So instead of 80%, let's bring it down to 70. Or we could set it up to 90, which gives us a little bit more. We're just going to get some weird things going on here. So let's just compromise at 85. So we've got all of this laid out pretty well. What I want to do is I want to look at this collection item, and I want there to be more space between the items. You see how there's some space here between each of the items in the list? We can do that by choosing the collection item and then coming up here to our margin and just creating some margin in between them. So let's just go ahead and do something. I was always taught do a little bit more than you think. You can always bring it back, but you can see that this gives us nice spacing in between each of the elements. Sort of makes it so that you can get some space in between them and tell them apart a little bit more. Okay. All right, and what does that look like? This is what it looks like when you look in your site. You can see our links there, and we have all of our information here. When I roll over that, you can see that that link works like all of our links do. Okay, and the real test is when you click it, what happens. So when you click it, it goes to this individual page's page. So this is something we're going to have to work on, the layout of each of the collection pages. Remember we talked about the blog post template, right? So we have to also put the information onto our blog post template that we want to show for each individual blog post. All right, so let's get out of that, and let me, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to sort of make this a little bit easier, because when you go into this post, you can see a lot of this stuff, at least these first 3 things, are all the same as they were on the other page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab 1, 2, 3 elements. Let's see, can I do that all? I can't grab them all. Okay, I can only do one at a time, but I've got this image selected. I'm going to Control C, and I'm going to go to my blog post template and create a new section. This is going to be for my content, And so I want it to be center aligned, and they have a container here that you can use just for centering. You can see that it's already centered. There's no issues there. It's got auto spacing margin on each side. And then I can just Control V and drop that picture right in there. Now I have a centered element. And again, when you click on it, it's drawing your image from the main image in your CMS, right? So it's going to automatically on this page, 10 things that nobody told you, blah, blah, blah. It's going to pull in that main image and it's going to put it right here. But not only does it do it for that one, it does it for all of them. So you can see as we cycle through, it's using this blog post template, which is like single.php in WordPress. And it's just going through my list of CMS articles and pulling out the image and putting it on here at for whatever page it is, whatever article it is. So I'm going to go back to the home page, and I want to copy this, and I just want to bring it right back into my my page here. I want to put it into the container, so I'm going to select the container and do Control V, and again we have everything here that we need. I've lost my styling here. For some reason, I've lost my styling. We'll have to figure that out. So, post title should give us our styling, but it's not. Okay, the last piece of evidence, or last piece of data we need is this paragraph, and we're going to come and again, let's go up to our container, Control V, and now we have that set in there like that. Okay, and now we're ready for our text. So it's our text that comes next, and we're going to be taking our text from our blog posts. We have our post title, we have our date that it was posted, we have our image, and then the post body is something that can be, you know, you can just sort of, this is a field, like you could go through and change the text or add text or whatever you want to do anytime you want to in here. So we can make a few changes, hit save, and let's recognize that this is called post body. And when we go into our original setup, the post body here is called rich text. Now, before we were only putting in plain text. So this here is all just plain text. The post title, the slug, the date and time. Where's the other one? The post summary is only plain text. Now, rich text is a little bit of a different type of element, and so we actually have to put a rich text block into our page. So we come up here and it's got its own special one here. So these different types of type or typography. So we grab the rich text and we want to put it into our section. So right now we're not connected to anything, but as soon as we want to connect it, we can connect it to our post body. Now, if you forget this and you come into your rich text block and you try to put, let's say you try to put a paragraph. That's what I try to do. That's what makes the most sense to me, right? You drop a paragraph and then you need to connect it. And when you look for something to connect it to, it can't connect it because paragraphs only contain plain text. So it's only going to give you the ones that are the plain text options. So that's sort of a gotcha to look for. You have to put a rich text element in there. So you grab your rich text, you put it in there, and then now you can connect it to your post body. And all of a sudden it brings in the post body. So if you hold Shift and Alt and then left and right arrows, it'll cycle you through all of your posts. So you can see that this post is quite different than this post, right? It's bringing in this post body from our collection of posts. So this part. Now you can manipulate that here. So you can make that an H1 or an H4, or you can put a link and then whatever.com, and you can choose it to open in a new tab or not. You select yes, and then now this is a link, you can see. Okay. Alright, so let's just leave that there. Let's actually do it as the H2. And we'll save it, and we'll go back to our post here. Again, you can cycle through those here by clicking on them, or the keyboard shortcut is Shift, Alt, and then right or left. And you can see that it's pulling in specific titles, specific dates, and the specific content, as well as the pictures. Alright, so we're almost there. One thing to know before, I think, before you connect this, is if you want to do any sort of, if you want to determine what like H2 elements are inside of this particular block, this rich text block, then you need to do that before you connect it to your CMS data. So let's say I want my heading 2s to look different than they are up here. So this is an H1 post title, and I want my heading 2s to look very particular. And so if I come and I select H2, then I can select my tag, and I can either choose all H2 headings, or a little trick is to click on rich text block, and how we do it? No, we click on the element, we select all H2 headings. So this is going to change every H2 heading on the website, but what I really want to do I see. Okay, I need to add a text here. So if I say rich, we'll call this a blog post full, something like that. So this this rich text editor is called blog post full, and then when we click on the H2 element and we come up here and we select all H2 elements, then if we change anything here, it's going to change every H2 across the website. However, if we click on this nest selector inside of blog post full, then it'll only affect the H2 headings inside of blog post full. So we click that, and now you can see that the H2, this would be like if you were writing CSS, it would be dot blog dash post dash full, and then H2, and then you would start your CSS declaration. So it's a way of nesting and keeping your styles contained inside of particular containers. So this container is called blog post full, and we're going to change this H2, and instead of bold, actually come here and change our change our body again. We're on a different page, right? So we had to change our body style. So let's click on the H2. It's nested under blog post full. So now we can use some of these. We'll use a light, and maybe we'll make that 40. No, too much. 24. Okay, and then we can even deal with our paragraphs. So again, we select a tag, we do all paragraphs, but we want to nest only the ones inside of blog post full, so that we can deal with those. So we're going to make those 16 points, and we'll make this 24, which is 1.5. Alright, this is a heading 4. Again, click on there. Only the ones nested inside there. Heading 4s are going to be all capitalized. And they're going to take on our lighter gray, maybe. So those will also be 16. Oh. So the heading 4s, those will also be 16 point, and they'll be semi-bold. Okay. And maybe that's a little bit backwards. It's a little bit too much. This should be extra bold. And then for our paragraphs, let's just give it a little bit of, you can add some margin to each side. So let's say on the top, we want it to be 1.5 rem. And then on the bottom, we just want it to be 1 rem. So that gives us a little bit of spacing here with our paragraphs. And then our heading 4s, we want to make actually 0 on the bottom. So 0 pixels, I guess. And the top, we'll just say 1 rem. So it means our paragraphs need to be 1 rem top and bottom, maybe. Okay, you can mess around with that and just change all the different elements. Just remember, when you're doing the rich text and you only want to deal with the blog posts, then you need to give it a CSS class, and then click on whatever element it is. Click on the selector for that element, and then add the nesting option. So if that's a little bit confusing, you can go back and watch me do it. I did it a couple times just to sort of show you. Now we're ready to actually connect our blog post data, so our post body, and then our post body is going to take on all of all of our styles here. So 10 things nobody, whatever. If we come in here and we change this to, what is it now? It's an H2 now. So if we change it to an H1, we save it, and we come back, you can see that this is actually larger. We can make it more pronounced by just making that super small. So we save it, and we come back, and you can see that it's taken on our H6 styling. So if you want to make all of those styling changes, you're going to have to do it inside of the rich text block before you connect all the information up, because once you get in it, you can't do anything. So you're going to have to unhitch the blog post, so it's just a regular rich text. It's not dynamic anymore. Click on this element, and then you have to make those changes. And if you want to, I suppose if you wanted to style more than that, so let's see. I want to add that. That wasn't what I wanted. Okay, let's say I want to add something to here. Then I would come in and I would add a heading, maybe. That's what it is. So you double click into your, well, let's get rid of that. Double click into your blog post full, so that it shows this blue outline, and then now you can add different rich text elements here. So you can add lists. These are ordered lists, unordered. What is this? Embed rich content. So I assume iframes and things. You can actually do write your own code in here, but it requires a paid plan. You can add a video URL, or you can add an image. Okay, so different rich text elements you can add in here. And if you add some text, then when you highlight it, you get all the same options, right? So that now when you're clicking on this, again, you can go and choose all H1 headings that are nested inside of here, and you can make this, you know, whatever you want. And so when you connect back up to your blog posts, then any H1s in here, so let's just move that back to an H1, it should take on the styling that we just did. Alright, so you can see that it took on the styling that we just gave it. So that's sort of a roundabout way. The good part is that once you set one of these, it sort of sets everything for the rest of your blog posts. So, okay. And the last thing I want to do is give this a little bit of a max width, same as the rest. So 80, not 80 pixels, 80%. And I want to center that. So now we have our content centered. Again, we can sort of scroll through everything. And also want to give this a little bit of a margin on the top. So let's say 48. Okay, just to separate out that content a little bit. And when we look at it here, you can see this is our blog post. Again, Shift Alt to the right goes to the next post, to the next post, to the next post. This is the first one. And so as far as stylistically, you can do whatever you want to with all of these. But essentially this is where we're at. If we click on blog, it takes us back to the home page that has all of our individual, actually our collection list. And then when we click on the read more, then we can actually read all of the blog posts. Now the last part is the home page. So again, I'm going to come in here. I should set the body. So let's say Montserrat. And I want to add my symbol again. So I want to take the masthead and put it in there. So again, this is on the correct page. And what else do we want to do here? We want to have something similar to what we have up here, of an image and then some text. So we need a new section. And again, I'm going to put a container in there so that it's just centered on the page. And what do we need? We need a little image. Let's see, I don't know if I have any readily available images just on the desktop. Nothing that I could just pull in very quickly. But you might have an image here. We'll just set it like this. And then inside the container, we want to add a paragraph. And then after that, a headline. So I'll just put a header right here. Okay. And we can choose an H2 for that. I want all of this in my container. Since this is all I'm going to have, I'm just going to center align everything. It's not good practice to do that kind of stuff, but you know, I'm just showing you here. I want this section to have some actually some padding. So let's give it like 64 pixels. And then that separates us a little bit there. I'm going to put a little bit of margin here, a little bit more than what's called for there. So let's just say this one should be 16. And now we have just sort of a basic about me sort of page. So when we look at it here, we go to our blog, and then when we click on about, oh, we got to connect that. So up in our header, because we're using this same masthead all over the place, if you double click into that, we can actually go through and make changes to it, and you'll see here down it's editing the symbol master. So what that means is that when whatever changes I make up here, it's going to make the changes all over wherever this symbol is used on the website. So for the about page, we need to link it to a page, and the page is called about, and we'll click done. Let's preview it again, and we're on the blog page now. So when we click here, it goes to our about page, and it made that change all across the website. So if we go back to blog and we click here, you can see that the about page works there as well. So once you edit that symbol, now you're able to change that wherever you've placed it in the website. And same thing goes with color changes or spacing changes or whatever you make. So symbols are super powerful and easy ways for you to manipulate different pieces of content, only changing one, but not having to go through each time and change all of them. Okay, so this is, we could add, let's see, we could make this, we can make this a link, and so this link goes to the home page. And then now you can see that this text is linked back to my home page. Okay, so this is what I hope is a pretty good introduction to Webflow. If you've wanted to start a blog, Webflow has tons of different options. I'm not necessarily a shill for Webflow, but let's see, I don't know if they have. If you go back to here, and I know it's here, so you can, maybe it doesn't give you those options because I'm logged in, but there are different ways that you can get to upgrading the plan. So you can see the different plans here. You can do the billing monthly or annually, and picking a plan that's ready for you, and you can sort of go up and down. If you have a team, they have plans for that. And they also do hosting, so you can choose a hosting plan that's outside of your Webflow plan. So it's like two different things. So I've been really pleased with the way that Webflow has built not only the software, but they've thought through what would a designer who's trying to offer something for their clients want, or what would someone who doesn't have a lot of experience, maybe a little experience, but not a lot of experience with web design, what would they be able to do? How easy can we make that happen for them? And they've got tons of really great educational videos about every piece of the platform, and it's just a well done piece of software. And it's been, a long time in the making, but it's sort of come to fruition, and one of the best no-code tools that's out there right now. So hopefully we've done justice by showing you how you could create something just like this, just by let's see, where is it? My dashboard. So you can create something like that just in a matter of less than an hour, going through this and recreating this. Once you're ready and you're happy with it, you would come up here and you would click publish. So you can also add a custom domain, but you need to pay for that. So that's sort of an upgrade. But if you just want to publish to simpleblog.webflow.io, you can click publish, and then now you have a link. This link right here is an actual link to the web on the web. So if I open a new tab and put the link, it comes here and you can see it. And this is my website actually live online. So if you wanted to share the website with a client, or you just wanted to keep an ugly URL and have a free blog, you'd be able to do that. And when you click here, people can read your blog, and they can read a little bit more about you. There's no image here, so that's why it's blank. So, excuse me, this is a really powerful platform, something good to play around with. Maybe you want to start building your own blog on a platform like this. They also have templates that you can use, which, this example page up here is a template that you could actually go in and just sort of make your own. But I also wanted to be able to show people how they can do it themselves as well. All right. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments section below. If you have any suggestions or any questions about what I did in the program, or some questions about Webflow, I can't answer all the questions because I'm not a paying member, I guess, of the Webflow community. But it certainly is, for the right projects, I believe it's worth paying for. There are people who are making businesses out of making Webflow websites, and also there are lots of people who are transitioning out of WordPress because it's just a little bit too clunky, and they're transitioning into Webflow. There's some other tools, being able to log in from the front end and making changes right in the browser instead of going into all this back end interface. So that's kind of a cool part of it as well. And didn't show you that there's an e-commerce section where you can turn your website into a store. You can upload photos. We didn't really get into that too much, but there's lots of really great parts of this. We didn't get into the JavaScript effects or anything. Just plain and simple blog, straightforward. And then now you can go in, and anytime you wanted to create new content, you just go to your blog posts, write a new blog post, and it would show up on your page. So it would come, I think it's being sorted by date. So if you wrote one for February 6th, that would show up first. So also something you can decide in your settings, but that's the default. All right. I think that's all I got. This is a long one, but I think it's a good one, and I hope it's something, an introduction that is going to be able to help you or somebody to be able to create a new blog with no code tools. But in essence, this is just, I'll show you the code that comes out. You've got, it's just regular, HTML here, and you got control of the CSS over here, just like you normally would, and it's not too over the top as far as the as the code is concerned. Sometimes with these no code editors, the code is not very good that comes out the other side, but with these guys, it's really pretty good. It's sustainable, especially as long as you're putting classes in there. So something to think about. All right, I'm really getting off the phone this time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.